In today's video, I'm going to be, oh, you don't even know who I am. Shivers. Let me tell you who I am. My name is Ashby. I'm an online personal trainer, originally a Kiwi, now living in Sydney, Australia, transforming people's bodies all over the world with workout programming, nutrition guidance, accountability, all that good stuff that you need. But today, I'm going to be answering the most Googled fitness questions ever in the world. I talked to Mr. Google and he told me 10 questions that everyone has been asking. But anyway, let's get into it. So we have the amount of monthly searches too, which is quite interesting for me. Number one, how can I build an exercise plan? 500 monthly searches. So it's quite a mature question, I think. So if you're looking at trying to build your own exercise plan, could be a workout plan, but exercise is kind of like a broad general physical activity. Working out is like, okay, you're lifting weights or you're going to CrossFit, you're doing F45. Can we really call F45 working out? I'm not too sure. But exercise is kind of like, okay, it could be walking 3 times a week. Exercise could be swimming, could be rowing, or all that kind of stuff. But if you say working out, that generally means that you're lifting weights. The first thing that you need to do before you build an exercise plan is set a goal. There's no point in trying to give you an exercise plan that has nothing to do with what you want to achieve. So that's something that you have to think of yourself. What do you want to achieve? Now, most people will just say, I want to look better naked, or I want to build muscle and lose fat, or I want to look toned. Ooh, yes. So whatever that is, figure that out and be certain on what you want to achieve. Once you have that goal, it's much easier to kind of dictate what you need to do to get that goal. Number 2 would be to set your training frequency. How much can you commit to your physical activity or your exercise program? Can you do it every day? Can you do it 3 times a week? Can you do it 2 times a week? Can you do it 4? That sort of stuff. And then how long you can give each of those workouts or exercise times, how long you can do. Can you do 30 minutes? Can you do 45? Can you do 2 hours? Are you a bit more flexible with time? That really matters. And this is, it sounds like I'm kind of overthinking it, but if you don't have this right, you will just be that person that just goes whenever, and then 5 times a week turns to 4, turns to 3, turns to 2, and then you're just sitting on the couch watching Netflix, not training, and life is going by and you're getting unhealthy. And I don't want that for you. So set your goal, set your training frequency, and then within that frequency, set your duration. So now you have some concrete times that you can commit, and with the goal, you can decide what to put in those slots. Now, making your exercise plan does have some limiting factors of your knowledge and your ability of knowing what you need to do. Now, if someone says to me, I have a goal to achieve this and that, because I'm an online personal trainer, I can give them what they need to do to get that goal. If they stick to it, they're going to achieve it. But you may not have that knowledge. So this is where I would recommend getting a personal trainer, getting an online coach, maybe someone whose video you're watching, or maybe anyone that knows more than you to give you the right recipe to get your goal. The last point that is probably the most important once all of this is sorted out is, what do you like? Because if you don't like what your program says, you're not going to do it. Once again, you're going to go from 5 days to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1 to Netflix. It's kind of just like a scale that goes down, and you're not going to be able to do it if you hate it. And we're all adults. We have to do things that we don't like to do. We have to eat our broccoli. We have to eat our green beans. We can't just eat gelato and burgers every day. Even though I would love to do that, we can't do that. We have to do things that we don't want to do. That's just part of being an adult. You don't want to go to work today, your boss doesn't care. You still have to go. And that's the same thing with working out and your exercise plan. Sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. But the main thing is liking it. So if you don't like those things, try to at least minimize how much of the stuff you need to do and try to maximize the stuff that you want to do. It's kind of this mix of needs and wants. But at the end of the day, we're all adults and we have to do things that we don't want to do. So those are the things that you need to consider when you're trying to build an exercise plan. The next question, number 2, with 1,000 monthly searches. What should I eat before and after a workout? I like to call this the workout sandwich technique. So you have your bread. It's a pretty basic sandwich. I'm not a very good cook. You have a bread, which is your pre-workout meal. You have your workout, which is, let's just say, a beef patty. And then you just have another piece of bread. which is your post-workout meal. So I like to workout sandwich my workouts in terms of nutrition. So your pre-workout meal, you want to have some protein and some carbs about 2 hours to 30 minutes before you train. This depends on your stomach. Some people, if they eat too close to their workout, they feel like vomiting. They feel nauseous. I personally can eat straight away and train. I don't know why. I just have a stomach that's pretty good at digesting and training. But if that's not you, then maybe eat somewhere 90 minutes to 2 hours before you train, and then you're going to have that food digested, ready to go, and then you can train feeling pretty good. And then you do your workout, the beef patty, whatever you need to do, and then protein and carbs after your workout, 15 minutes after or straight after, all the way up to about 60 minutes. Now, like research says, you can eat 2 to 3 hours after your training. I just like to get it in early so that you know you've had your protein after your workout and your carbs. Now, if you're dieting and you don't have many calories and you're like, Brock, I can't have protein and carbs and then more protein and carbs, then just make sure you get some protein in. Protein is going to be muscle sparing, so it's going to help you maintain your muscle mass if you're dieting and help you to retain that muscle whilst you're losing fat, because that is what improves your body composition, holding onto your muscle and losing your fat. If you're just losing fat but also losing muscle mass, you just kind of look sick, and then you have this, I don't know, this is so funny. I was thinking about this today while I was driving. You have the terminally ill look, which is like you just look sick. So we don't want to look sick. We want people to say, hey man, you look so great, not, hey man, are you okay? Do you have cancer? We don't want that. So we want to just hold on to our muscle and lose our body fat. We want to improve our body composition, and that comes from having protein before and after our workouts. Now, there was research on, because there's also another question that I get. It's like, oh, Brock, I don't eat before I work out. Is that good? There was a fasting study where people trained fasted and then they did their workouts versus people that had breakfast and they did their workouts. Ultimately, what it concluded was they built the same amount of muscle, but in terms of strength, the people that fasted had inferior strength to the ones that had breakfast. So I would take that and say, well, look, you can build the same amount of muscle, but you're not going to get as strong. But long term, if you think about stronger people versus less strong people, generally stronger people lift more weight, therefore they send a stronger stimulus to their muscle to say, hey, you need to grow. So I think in that study, I'm not sure what the duration was, but if we look at over a span of 5 to 10 years, which is what we should be training for anyway, we should have that mindset of looking forward and being like, I want to train forever. A stronger person is probably going to have more muscle mass, stronger bone density than the person that isn't as strong. So I would go for eating before training. And if you struggle, you're like, I just can't do it. I had a podcast with Jordan Sullivan, who's the fight dietitian on Instagram. He's super good, but he said that you can train your gut to learn to eat in the morning. So start very simple. And if you can't stomach anything, I would start with something like just a protein shake before you train. Have that, train. At least you're going to spare your muscle mass and avoid the terminally ill effect. All right, the third question. What happens if your heart rate is too high during exercise? 1,200 monthly searches for this. Look, this is quite simple. You're just unfit, really. And this can really happen to beginners. I actually had a session here yesterday with a client, and he was doing lunges. And we were meant to do dumbbell split squats, which he did not do. He just did body weight because it was really tough. We did 4 sets of body weight split squats, so just on the spot split squats. He went a bit pale. His heart rate was through the roof. He was like fatigued. He did weights afterwards, like with his chest press, and then we did other exercises for legs, like leg extension. He was doing really, really reduced weight to what he previously thought he could do. It was like our first workout session, but he was really fatigued, and his heart rate was super high. And that's just simply because he wasn't used to training the way that I train. So training with intensity. I'm not saying that like that. The way that I do personal training is unique and it's the best and blah, 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 blah. We were just doing a standard workout that was tailored for him, but he was just so new to training. He hadn't trained this intensely for a while. His heart rate was through the roof. So number one is like, you're unfit. You're pretty much just unfit, and you're new to it, and your muscles aren't really used to it. They're a bit shocked, so that he's going to be really sore. and you just need to rest for longer. So that workout that should have taken about 60 minutes for us, we only did just over half of the workout, and that took an hour. So he just needs to rest for longer until he gets used to the way that we train. And you just need to acclimate to the program. So you just need to get used to it. So if your heart rate is too high, it's probably that. You just need to rest for longer. And that couldn't be just because you're fatigued. It could just be because you need to rest for longer. So if you do squats, I'm pointing here because there's a squat rack here, but you can't see it. There's a squat rack here. If you do squats for 15 reps and then take 30 seconds of rest and do another set of squats for 15 reps, you're not going to be able to breathe. That's very fatiguing. So a good rule is when you're going in to do your next set to work out, assuming you're doing straight workout sets, that set needs to be done when you go in to do more reps, that your heart or your heart rate isn't the limiting factor. It should be your target muscles. So if you're doing 15 reps of squats, you probably need about 3 minutes rest to calm your heart down, get your heart rate back down, chill, relax, and then go for squats again so that the limiting factor is your quads, not like, I'm so out of breath, and then you're going in and then you stop because you literally can't breathe. That's not good hypertrophy training to get as big as possible. That's just literally doing cardio. Next question. What exercises are best for building muscle? 1,500 monthly searches for this one. Let's kick this off with, there are no best exercises, but here is how you decide which ones are good for you. So we want a good stimulus to fatigue ratio. And that means we want a high stimulus for building muscle with a low amount of fatigue. That's a good stimulus to fatigue ratio. A bad one is just when it's flipped over. So, for example, if you do heavy deadlifts for 3 reps, that's a very high amount of fatigue. For building muscle, it could also be high, but you have to consider how much it fatigues you and how much your central nervous system fatigue feels that and what you have to achieve in the rest of the session versus what you have to achieve, for the rest of the week as well, because that does beat you up. So, number one, we want a good stimulus to fatigue ratio for you individually. Some people can bench press all day long. Some people do bench press and their shoulders and their elbows kind of feel a little bit. So that isn't a good stimulus to fatigue ratio for you, that exercise. Maybe the best exercise to build muscle for your chest is a chest press machine. It feels better on your joints. Maybe it's a cable crossover fly. Maybe it's an incline dumbbell chest press. You have to figure that out on your own. But there's no set rule that bench press is the best exercise in the world for building chest. It's just not. It might be for someone, it might not be for someone else. The next thing is the target muscle should be the limiting factor, not your heart rate or your joints or your grip. For example, a dumbbell Romanian deadlift is a very good exercise, or RDL. It's good for your hamstrings, it's good for your glutes. But if you're holding dumbbells doing it, and your forearms are giving way before your hamstrings and glutes do, that's not a good exercise for building muscle. It can be, maybe if you use lifting straps, so your grip isn't a limiting factor, but if your limiting factor is somewhere else, then it's not going to be a good muscle for you. And once again, squats could be, but if it really bangs up your knees and your hips, maybe that's not the best exercise for you. Maybe leg press is better, maybe leg extension is better for your quads. I just mean that by if you're doing an exercise and it just makes you too tired that you lose your breath and you can't stop doing the exercise because your muscle fails, you literally can't breathe, so your heart fails, that's not the best for exercise selection. Now, a general focus on the stretched position of the muscle group is also a good way to visualize an exercise that's good for you. So if you're doing a leg press that's really, really hard at the bottom, coming up to the top, that's going to be a good exercise because it makes the most of the lengthened or stretched position of the exercise. If we're doing a leg extension, that is hardest at the top in the shortened position. That doesn't mean that exercise is a waste of time, but it may not be as hypertrophy stimulating than exercises like the squat, the leg press, the step up, the reverse lunge, the lunge, things that are utilizing the lengthened position. So that's something just to consider, a bit of icing on the cake. An exercise that's good for building muscle is also an exercise that you can execute the move with very good technique. It doesn't have to be perfect, though we should always be striving for perfect. If your technique's off, you're going to be hurting things like your joints, your connective tissues, your ligaments. You won't be able to get as strong as you can. You're putting a ceiling over your head. And that is what most people have in the gym. If they don't have good technique, there's a ceiling in terms of how strong you can get because you're not leveraging the exercise in an efficient way. Lastly, the exercise should have stood the test of time. If you're doing an exercise that you've heard of that's kind of brand new and it's this and that, I'm not opposed to innovation, but if you just see something on Instagram and TikTok, you're like, oh yeah, that looks pretty cool. It's probably not that cool for building muscle. Exercises that have stood the test of time: leg press, chest press machine, push-ups, squats, lunges, pull-ups, bent over rows, seated rows, bicep curls, like these things. I'm not saying that you just need to do the basic workouts, but generally speaking, these exercises are a really good place to start if you're trying to build muscle. Next question: how much exercise do I need to do per week? 1,700 monthly searches. That really depends on your goal. So I'm not going to spend much time on this question. It's like a real, I don't know, it's like, it just depends on what you want to achieve. If you just want to like not die and just survive, like, I don't know, go for 8,000 to 10,000 steps per day, try and lift weights 2 to 3 times per week, that type of thing. So I wouldn't really kind of ask yourself that question. I think it's more so like, what do you want to achieve? And then like, what is a realistic way of achieving that instead of just going like, how much do I need to work out per week? Like that's, I don't know, at least be active, I don't know, every day. That's a good goal. It could be a walk. It could be a workout. It could be getting 8,000 to 10,000 steps in some way, shape or form. I don't know. That's a really hard question to answer without much information. Out of the 10 most asked fitness questions on Google, these were the bottom 5. If you want to watch the top 5 most asked questions on Google, that video's right here. Thanks for watching.